Can we do a Joker off?
This town needs an enema.
Wait till they get a load of me.
I'll break into the laugh. Yeah.
That's not it.
That'll do it.
All right. I think yours won.
Why are we doing Joker Offs? Because you are listening to the Arkham Sessions, and we are doing a very special episode this week. For the first time, we're moving away from Batman the Animated Series.
Just temporarily.
And only sort of. We'll bring it back before the end of the episode, we promise. But we are celebrating the 25th anniversary of Tim Burton's Batman movie, which premiered this week, 25 years ago in 1989. And so we decided, as our tribute to that movie, we were going to cover it much like we would the animated series.
That's right. We watched the film, although, Brian, I know you pretty much have it etched in your brain.
Memorized.
So you probably didn't need to watch it again, but we rewatched the film, and we took an Arkham Sessions approach to analyzing the film and observing the film through a psychological perspective.
That's right. And I did appreciate that. It was the first time that I've ever watched it for a reason other than just sheer enjoyment of Batman and the tone and the way that this sort of changed the way that people saw Batman on film. Up to this point, the only way that we had seen Batman on screen in a live action format, unless you count the serials back in the day, would have been the 1966 Adam West Batman. And let's make it very clear that the intention all along was to not do that. They did not want to remake Batman the movie with Adam West and Burt Ward. They actually wanted to do something that Frank Miller had just recently done in the comics with The Dark Knight Returns. They wanted to give the Batman a dark world in which to live.
And they succeeded.
They absolutely did. Who better to direct a movie like that? Tim Burton.
Right.
And it screams Tim Burton. It's got a very gothic look.
No, I would say it doesn't scream Tim Burton. It moans Tim Burton.
I would agree with you. It is very subtle without being subtle.
Right.
Gotham City is clearly a city that doesn't exist in this world. Lots of gargantuan statues, very Art Deco in look. The sun never really seems to shine, even during the day. It's very clearly cloudy or foggy. It's very London-esque, but it's very dismal. Lots of steam. Not a healthy city.
I think people who, I know we were kids when this movie came out, and for me, I grew up on Batman the Animated Series. I was probably a bit too young to have seen this film when it first came out, and to truly realize its influence.
Right.
It's totally taken this universe and recreated it. So I think for folks that maybe haven't, I don't know, what would you say for folks that that may not have that concept yet, that what we see in the Nolan films, what we see in Batman the Animated Series, what we see in a lot of comics, actually originated from this film?
Absolutely. It's the first time, I mean, let's be honest, really. The first time we really ever saw Batman in a black costume was Tim Burton's Batman. And it made sense. You've got a shadowy figure. He wouldn't necessarily be wearing light gray and blue.
Yeah, what's up with that? He
would not be wearing, these colors that we have come to know Batman in.
Exactly.
he would want to be a creature of darkness, and so they gave him a black costume. And this was innovative at the time. Bob Ringwood did an amazing job taking this character out of the comics and leading him out of the comic book world and out of the cartoony world of Super Friends, or out of the almost even more cartoony world of the 1966 Batman series, and actually brought it into a world of gritty realism, and he made the costume black. He kept the gold behind the gold shield that we had all come to know, although he had changed the bat ever so slightly, adding 2 additional little points to the tail part. But the costume is exactly what you would have pictured Batman. But up to this point, let's give credit where credit is due here. The man who's really responsible for even making or having this movie made is Michael Uslan. This guy, for people who don't know, you absolutely should, especially if you're fans of Batman. He was the executive producer on this film, and honestly, he had been championing a Batman film for years. And every studio had turned it down because no one could get out of their heads the idea of the Adam West, Burt Ward Batman.
Right.
They couldn't imagine a vigilante fighting crime in Gotham City, live action on film. It didn't resonate with them as something that would be believable or something that would be profitable in any way, despite the fact that Batman or Superman had been very profitable for the better part of that decade. Now, that being said, Supergirl, Superman 3, Superman 4 they were seeing the decline. They were not good movies. They were not doing well. So the idea of a superhero flick coming back onto the scene probably wasn't in anyone's idea of a good time at the studio system. But Warner Brothers eventually took a chance on Michael. And like I said, he was the executive producer of the film. And they got an amazing group on board. Tim Burton to direct. The story and the first drafts were written by Sam Hamm, who's definitely a Batman fan. Some of the rewrites were done by Warren Scarron, who unfortunately made a couple of choices that fans went all fan boy over and, really disliked some of the choices he made. But as I've always said, if you're going to do a new origin, we have to go along with that origin.
Sure.
And
we'll talk about what some of those details are.
But, Tim Burton brought in Roger Pratt to be the director of photography, so everything became dark, lots of silhouettes, lots of smoke, lots of steam, lots of shadows. He brought in Anton Furst to do the production design. Bob Ringwood, like I said, was a costume designer. The movie was produced by John Peters and Peter Guber. And probably a very key element to the success of at least this translation of Batman was the score, done by Danny Elfman of Oingo Boingo fame. And of course, he had also done Pee-wee's Big Adventure with Tim Burton, and he was basically Tim's guy. He's been Tim's guy forever. A little bit of Batman the Animated Series trivia, of course, Shirley Walker, who we know as the composer of Batman the Animated Series, was Danny Elfman's conductor for years. She is an amazing conductor and composer in her own right, one of the only females to do so. And she has an amazing list of credits. I absolutely suggest you go to IMDb and look her up. Unfortunately, she passed in 2006, but...
I was going to say, that's interesting because most people credit Danny Elfman for the music in Batman the Animated Series.
And they would be very, unfortunately, wrong. It is his theme in the beginning.
Right.
And that theme, of course, came from this movie. But Shirley was his go-to conductor and was very close to him. And she actually took a lot of the score from the movies, to use as a template. But if you listen to the score, it's not Danny's score from these movies. She has done an amazing job of incorporating them, or rather using them as a foundation for the tone of what the score should sound like. But Shirley Walker is the composer, and now we can see that she'd actually been there from the beginning as Danny's conductor on this film.
Yeah, that explains a lot.
So let's talk about the movie. We actually, typically this would be when you and I sort of go through scene by scene the series. This is, of course, a movie. We don't want to take everyone through.
Ain't got time for that.
This film. So, and presumably, in the last 25 years, you've seen this film probably a lot if you're listening to this podcast.
Well, and I want to be clear that we don't review BTAS episodes anyway. This isn't a film review. It's just the perspective through that psychological lens, and hopefully some insight that other reviewers and other writers wouldn't cover.
Right.
So, I mean, there's lots of places you can find those reviews. This is not a review or a play-by-play of the film.
Right. That being said, we will start out with the first scene of the movie, which is a family not unlike the Waynes back in the day, going through Gotham City's very gritty streets, desperately trying to find their way, unfortunately very lost. They go down an alleyway and they're met up by two thugs who could nearly kill them. It looks very much like the scene that we all know as the birth of Batman, of Bruce Wayne as the orphan, millionaire's son, heir of Wayne Industries.
Except the Waynes would never take a taxi. Let's just make that very clear.
They would probably never take a taxi, no. And unfortunately, that might be why they're gone. Maybe if they had only taken a taxi from the theater, everything would be fine. But instead, these folks go down an alleyway. They're mugged, and this little boy gets to see Gotham's worst in action. The two thugs then make their way to the top of a roof, where this is what I love about Batman. This is the character that I enjoy. I enjoy the myth. I enjoy the criminals who are sitting on top of rooftops, going through wallets, finding American Express cards.
Don't leave home without it.
Who then tell each other stories about what they heard about the giant bat.
I heard the bat got him.
The bat? Oh, man, give me a break, will you?
5 stories straight down. There wasn't no blood in the body.
The idea that there's this bat out there and we've not all seen it. We don't all know that Batman is around. Instead, he is like the boogeyman. He is Bigfoot. He is the Loch Ness Monster.
This isn't the visible star or high-profile hero like Superman or like Adam West's Batman.
Right, who would make appearances at ribbon cuttings and stuff like that.
And this makes more sense in terms of Bruce Wayne's vision and mission, in that he has to maintain this, this kind of mythical mystery, so that people are fearful and they are, confused, and so that they are deterred in terms of engaging in crimes. So it makes sense to me.
Yeah, and just at that moment, Batman does in fact show up, and he pummels the two thugs, but not before he lets one of them know who he is.
What are you?
I'm Batman.
I'm Batman.
Exactly. And then he disappears. And now we see exactly, in this one scene, we see exactly how Batman works. Right. I'm going to pummel you, and then I want you to tell all of your friends about me. It's not by pummeling every single thug. It's not by letting every single thug see you. It's by making the thugs not want to see you. We're introduced to Batman in the best possible way, and two thugs are sent off to the hospital, each talking about a 6-foot bat in Gotham City. This is also where we're introduced to the first sort of Harvey Bullock type character, the super gruff, fedora wearing, trench coat. He's the kind of guy who, well, for starters, the anti-Harvey Bullock, in that this guy's corrupt. This guy is on the payroll of the mob.
He's what people think Harvey Bullock is.
Right.
But Harvey Bullock is not.
Right. Yeah. If nothing else, he is the epitome of what the Gotham City Police Department is. You know, we've always heard that GCPD is corrupt. Really, only Jim Gordon is to be trusted. Well, this is our way of showing that. It's this guy, Lieutenant Eckhart, who is as corrupt as they come. We even see him taking money from one Jack Napier.
Broadcasted. Shut up.
Who is Jack Napier? He is Carl Grissom's probably chief lieutenant. He is the mob boss's number one guy.
Of course, played by Jack Nicholson.
Jack Nicholson. An unbelievably good performance. And Carl Grissom, of course, Jack Palance. So we get to see that Gotham is this dark, corrupt city. In fact, one of my favorite scenes or moments from the film is when Jack is simply watching television and we hear that the mayor desperately wants to have the 200th birthday celebration in Gotham, but that people are too scared to show up. Mm-hmm. And Jack responds to the television,
"Decent people shouldn't live here. They'd be happier someplace else."
Even pre-Joker acknowledges this is an unsafe town.
Yeah.
And if people want to survive, they should probably leave.
Yeah. And he's absolutely right. There is nothing about this city from the moment we have stepped foot inside of it that makes us really want to be there.
Yeah.
And so the mayor wants to clean this city up, and he's trying to enlist the help of District Attorney Harvey Dent, played by Billy D. Williams.
/ Lando.
And I will say that I see a lot of Harvey in Billy D. Williams in this role. He is actually an inspired choice because he is very charismatic. He is, you can hear the smooth talking DA.
The people of Gotham City, I'm a man of few words, but those words will count, and so will my actions.
And we also see Commissioner Gordon, played by Pat Hingle. I wouldn't say this is our Jim Gordon.
No, he's, I don't know, it's not that he's an older Commissioner Gordon that's difficult for me to kind of see him as Jim Gordon. There's something, he's just like ineffective. There's something about that particular character that didn't quite resonate for me, at least now.
Right. Yeah. He does have at least the line of dialogue going for him. Later on, we're at Bruce Wayne's manor at a big gala, charity gala, and Commissioner Gordon is pulled aside by one of his police officers, and that police officer tells him that Lieutenant Eckhart is in charge of a raid on Axis Chemicals. And Commissioner Gordon actually says,
Oh my God.
You know, like you know that he knows Eckhart is on the take. He even shows up to Axis Chemicals and says,
I'm in charge here, not Carl Grissom.
Right.
So that is the Jim Gordon we know. We know him as the commissioner who knows that his men are corrupt and he's trying to clean them up.
Well, except, again, in the film, he seems to be ineffective there.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
Whereas in the animated series, that he does have some clout, and I think people do respond to him as if he has more authority.
Right.
But in the film, I don't know, he's just sort of, there's something wishy-washy about him.
The fact that Eckhart is even still on the job.
True.
You know, sort of exemplify. This guy clearly knows that Eckhart is criminal, and yet he is still patrolling the streets. So I think you're absolutely right. He's not exactly effective in his job as police commissioner. As a result, I think this is sort of why Gotham needs Batman. So at the same time, I have a hard time, unlike other iterations where Jim Gordon is a good cop, Jim Gordon is a strong cop, Jim Gordon is a great leader who's cleaning up Gotham City, and yet Gotham still needs Batman. I like Jim in those iterations, but this is the kind of commissioner that I think is probably more realistic. I think he's the guy who's a good guy. He's the guy who has big ambitions for not letting the crime lords take over Gotham, but he's probably not very good at it. And that's why Batman sort of comes in to take him under his cape.
Okay, so speaking of Batman, we're at this party.
We meet Bruce Wayne. What do we think about Bruce?
Well, the first thing that I was reminded of when I watched the scene is that a lot of people don't know what Bruce looks like. You know?
Yeah, Bruce he seems to be a recluse in that everyone knows Bruce Wayne's name, and they're all going to his charity ball, and it looks like all of Gotham is there. It is a crowded event.
But a very established, talented, worldly person like Vicky Vale.
Photographer. So very visual.
Yes.
Knows who people look.
She does not know who Bruce is.
And by the way, Vicky is on the guest list. She has been sent an invitation to this gala.
Yeah.
So one would think she knows who Bruce Wayne is.
She does not. In fact, they have an interaction in which... Is that a meet cute? I don't know. That's not a meet cute?
Yeah, it's not really a meet cute so much. I mean, I will say Michael Keaton
is cute.
Who he does play it very cutely. Like it is a fun introduction to Bruce Wayne.
Could you tell me which of these guys is Bruce Wayne?
Well, I'm not sure.
Thanks, Amy.
Maybe he doesn't quite know who he is or where he is.
Right.
So
yeah, and I like that he's like signing a check at that moment. Like he's constantly, we see him at this gala giving away money, basically, because Vicky's date for the gala is Knox, a reporter who is, he's the guy who, in all of these cases, we saw it in the Incredible Hulk TV show, we've seen it in a number of different television series and movies. He's the reporter who believes there's a Batman.
Yeah.
And he's going to find him.
Well, and he's us, right? Like,
right.
Like he's grounded. He's certainly smart, and yet he believes in this thing. And I think we're supposed to relate to him, and we're supposed to kind of root for him.
Yeah, and Vicky's his partner on it. The two of them believe that it's Pulitzer Prize material, his words, her pictures. And they're at this ball, and neither of them have no idea which one of these people is Bruce Wayne. They go into Bruce's armory and are actually making fun of him. I mean, he's got a collection of armor and suits from different tribes and different warrior generations, which tells us a lot about Bruce, that he's got this collection of military regalia from around the world. He is well-traveled, but he's also very interested in armor, in military, in protection, and you know, it says a lot, this scene. So that's when he introduces himself as Bruce Wayne.
Hi, Bruce Wayne.
Are you sure?
Yeah, this time.
But this is also when he gives Knox a grant. So, you know, he is throwing away the money, which is kind of great. It's the first time we've really seen a Bruce Wayne who's just given away the trust fund. and I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, if we were to compare this film Bruce Wayne to the Batman the Animated Series Bruce Wayne, the film Bruce Wayne seems to be a little bit more, I don't know, I don't want to say generous with his money, but there's this lightheartedness about it. Mm-hmm. It's not important. He's not as controlled.
He's a little aloof as well.
Yes. Whereas the Bruce Wayne, now the public figure Bruce Wayne in Batman the Animated Series, is a little bit more put together. He is a public figure. He is well known. He is identifiable. People know who he is. And so that's kind of an interesting, we've talked in previous episodes about how controlled that Bruce Wayne persona is for the Batman the Animated Series Bruce / Bruce Wayne. And here, I almost feel like Bruce Wayne and Bruce, the person who Bruce is, seem to be the same person. Does that make sense? So in BTAS, I always talk about, there's Batman, there's the persona of Bruce Wayne, and then there's the persona of Bruce. This trio of personas that are fragmented.
And to be clear, Batman is obviously the Caped Crusader. Bruce Wayne is the public persona that's a very social guy he runs Wayne Industries, and he's the public face of Bruce Wayne.
Right.
And then there's Bruce, the kid, basically, who lost his parents, who doesn't let people in. He's kind of the hidden version of this character. He's the real guy.
Right, but the more authentic self.
Right, that's what
Bruce.
I mean.
Yeah. But I sort of see it like, for you psychology nerds out there, the id, the superego, and the ego.
Okay.
That you have these sort of layers of your personality, of yourself, and that, sure, a healthy person would integrate all of those layers. But with Batman / Bruce Wayne / Bruce, he lives this lifestyle where he's unable to integrate those personas, or he's unwilling, I should say, to integrate those personas.
My life is really complex.
So with the film, though, I'm seeing that Bruce Wayne, the public figure Bruce Wayne, at least the one that's at this party, is very similar to Bruce, the real authentic self. And as we get to know him more throughout
at least
the
in
film,
social situations, because we do see him later on be the brooding Bruce that we know, but I don't think he's playing it differently there.
No. And in fact, when he's at this party, he's kind of by himself. He's taking care of business, but again, to me, he seems more, I guess, in alignment with that real Bruce. That if you just asked him a few questions or get him alone, he'll reveal that. So it's more integrated, I think, than the personas in BTAS.
I do think we do see probably 3 different sides of Batman, Bruce Wayne in the film, in that we watch him stumble. We watch him be a little quirky around Vicky and around Knox. But then he's called away and told that Commissioner Gordon had to leave. And even in that moment, he starts to go the wrong way. And Alfred tells him, no, I believe you want to going this way.
Why does he do that?
Here's where I'm going. He then says, yes, of course, then goes. The next thing we see is he is watching on monitors, and he's not bumbling anymore. He is very put together. He is very, now he is at the controls. He is at the helm, and he is moving these cameras around. And I think he just has 2 sides of him in that case. I don't think he's 2 different personas, which I think we see in the animated series. I think there is almost 2 different Bruce and Bruce Wayne in the animated series. Here, he's just a guy who's going to work, and he's very good at going to work.
It's like a switch where he realizes, I need to get onto the job. I need to look at the surveillance. I need to do research, and I need to, collect this data in order for me to now go and take care of this. So I agree. I think that definitely works.
But I will also say that these are the scenes that make me love this movie so much. These are the scenes that actually, in the same way that we today will find people yelling and screaming over Ben Affleck becoming Batman or whatever, or Heath Ledger becoming the Joker, or just people who rant and rave. Michael Keaton was not a popular choice when they announced him. He was not an obvious choice. And that is why I love him. That is why he is my Batman. That is the reason I, as a Gothamite, would never in a million years suspect Bruce Wayne to be Batman.
The Batman.
Mm-hmm. I think the problem with these other characters, these other people who are, 250 pounds, chiseled, good looking, and strong jawed, and people who go out into the public and spend their money on wealthy causes or whatever. I don't think there's much of a stretch for people to say, in order to be Batman, you've got to be pretty well financed, and you've got to be pretty strong, and you've got to be pretty athletic, and Bruce Wayne is all of those things.
Yeah.
In this case, you would never look at Michael Keaton and
and he's somewhat of a recluse, so he's
right.
He's kind of keeping himself, hidden in terms of his social life too. So he's the last person you would imagine.
Okay, so one of the things that we do in the Arkham Sessions typically is we'll dive into the psychology of these characters. We've talked about the fact that there is a distinct difference between Batman, Bruce Wayne, and Bruce in Batman the Animated Series. We've talked about the fact that there is a looser equivalent in the film, but not as distinct. And in the animated series, he is very strict, very rigid in his relationships with people. Here he seems to be friendlier and more sociable. Psychologically, what is the difference here?
Well, it is a little unfair to compare just a couple of hours from the film to what we've covered now, 23 episodes from BTAS. But there are a couple of scenes that are really telling in the film. One of my favorite scenes is when Alfred brings Vicky Vale into the Batcave, where Bruce Wayne is working at the computer. So now this is about what end of the second act here, where Bruce and Vicky have spent some time together, of course. And first of all, I just thought that was an interesting violation of
without any sort of It's not the Alfred that we know. He in that moment is not as loyal.
Is that but
although
it's interesting, sort of like, is he now?
Alfred does say,
I have no wish to fill my few remaining years grieving for the loss of old friends or their sons.
It seems like a huge violation of the secret identity code. But at the same time, we see that Bruce isn't completely devastated by this. In fact, he doesn't seem surprised at all, as if to accept that if this were to happen, it needs that extra push from Alfred.
Right.
Nonetheless, it surprised me. But there, Vicky and Bruce have this really intense conversation. And if you can get past the black turtleneck outfit
and blue jeans
that he has going on, we can see that this conversation that Bruce and Vicky have is really integral to understanding who Bruce Wayne is. She tells him,
We both got to each other, didn't we?
As if to mean, like what? Like, we really connected quickly and deeply. We're into each other, right? But then she says,
Why won't you let me in?
And he's not looking at her. It's kind of an interesting dynamic where he's looking away, and he, as you said, he's this brooding guy who is shut off or closed off but thinks that he's actually letting her in. In fact, he says, "You got in." And she says...
Even though the two of them only had one date, and then he supposedly was going out of town for a couple weeks, and he didn't.
Well, and then he lied to
her.
her, but she thought he lied to her, and then...
She thought he stood her up, and he didn't.
Yes. Well, I still think a lot happened during that time where they did get involved deeply and intensely, and there was a moment where he almost confessed to her or revealed that he is Batman.
Yes.
So that point of vulnerability did happen.
Mm-hmm.
And it better explains why Alfred let her into the Batcave, because Alfred knew that this is something that he was struggling with. And he probably knew he wouldn't do it himself. When they talk about his lifestyle as Batman, Bruce tells Vicky Vale, "Sometimes I don't even think about this. It's just something I have to do." And of course, she asks him why, because it doesn't make sense to her.
Because nobody else can. Look, I tried to avoid all this, but I can't. This is how it is. It's not a perfect world.
And she says,
It doesn't have to be a perfect world.
as if to say, you can't fix everything, but you seem to be fixated on fixing everything. And you've got to let that go, because that's life. That's how the world works. And being a photographer and having this perspective that I think he doesn't have, Vicky Vale's right. You can't save everyone. You can't fix everything. So you've got to kind of let that go. She's even saying here, in the process, you're hurting yourself. Like, you are the one who's being punished by this unending mission to make the world perfect. And of course, it's the question,
Are we going to try to love each other?
And he says,
I'd like to. But he's out there right now. And I've got to go to work.
yeah, he being the Joker. So I think it shows him as certainly being brave and dedicated and certainly just so committed to justice, right? But beyond that, listen to what he's saying. It's just something I have to do. Almost without understanding anymore why he's doing it. He just does it. And when I hear people say, it's just something I have to do, they're usually talking about some kind of behavior they're compelled to do that actually replaces things. Or better said, it distracts them from facing something that may make them feel something that they don't want to feel. Usually it means avoiding feelings that are difficult to process. Things like sadness, failure, disappointment, fear, and uncertainty. And I think those are the emotions that stir in Bruce. He's just a giant pot of those primary emotions.
is that why when he gets to Gotham City with the Batwing, he then just starts unloading machine guns and
Perhaps.
rockets on the Joker?
Well, and that's funny because I'm not saying what he's doing isn't right or valiant, but he replaces those feelings I mentioned with secondary emotions: anger, hatred, power, resentment, vengeance. Those are the things that drive him toward the Joker. It really gets to what Bruce is about psychologically, that you have someone telling him, I want you and I want to be close to you. And his focus is not on her needs, but on the mission to rid the city of crime and evil.
Wait till they get a load of me.
So let's get to the film's villain. Now, in the beginning of the movie, he is Jack Napier. He is the chief lieutenant. He then falls into the vat of chemicals at Access Chemicals as Batman is trying to save him. Instead, he falls into this green vat, comes up disfigured, goes to a plastic surgeon, and walks out with a permanent smile on his face, white skin, the red lips, the green hair. Most of all of that is as a result of the fall.
Right.
What would you say this fall has done to him, because he was a mobster and now he's just completely off the wall? And how would we compare Nicholson's Joker to Mark Hamill's Joker.
From BTAS.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that we have more information. We have a history. We have a backstory for this character. Whereas in the animated series, we don't get that. The Joker is the Joker. We have no idea how he got there. No idea why he looks like that. And it keeps us from really conjecturing too much about his diagnostic profile, I would say. Mm-hmm. But in the film, as I said, we have more information, and we know that prior to this accident, Jack is, we know that he's murderous. We know that he's manipulative. We know that he's narcissistic. He's got all of these characteristics that are problematic in society. Mm-hmm. But after the accident, it's as if all of these characteristics have amplified in quite a horrific negative way, that they're even more menacing and more destructive, wouldn't you say?
Yes. He wants everything to be big and bold, and he wants to redefine beauty in the eyes of the world. He wants them all to realize that he is the new aesthetic, and that's not the Jack that we knew prior to becoming the Joker.
Prior to his accident, Jack Napier could actually meet criteria for antisocial personality disorder, which is what we talked about in our BTAS episodes regarding the Joker. As a quick review, people with antisocial personality disorder are folks who are lawless and impulsive. They don't have any regard for other people's feelings. They tend to be antagonistic, manipulative, callous, and they engage in risk-taking. So they kind of get themselves in trouble along the way.
I like him already.
We established that for the Joker in the animated series, but we could actually say all of those things for Jack Napier before his accident. When I say risk-taker, I don't necessarily mean always getting themselves in trouble, but it could also mean pulling guns on people, which he does. It can mean getting involved in criminal acts. It can mean getting involved in something unlawful. I mean, that's risk-taking. That's what I meant by that.
Gotcha.
And in fact, what we get with this film is his file. We get his psychological profile.
Assault with a deadly weapon, age 15, results of psychological profile. Violent mood swings, highly intelligent, emotionally unstable. Aptitudes include science, chemistry, and art.
Now, for something like antisocial personality disorder, you can't be diagnosed with that personality disorder unless you have signs of what we call conduct disorder before the age of 15. And conduct disorder is sort of like the teenage version of that. Breaking laws, getting into trouble, risk-taking, not thinking of the consequences, not showing empathy for other people, torturing animals, that setting fires, so they kind of set it up to show that this guy, since his young teenage years, has been developing this antisocial, criminal type of personality.
Okay, so once he falls into the vat and becomes the Joker, he makes it very clear.
Jack is dead, my friend. You can call me Joker.
Yeah.
New personality. Bigger, bolder, more colorful, louder, lots more laughing.
Yeah, laughing inappropriately. He laughs when he sees his own disfigured face. Mm-hmm. He laughs when he's toward the end of the film on top of the building and jumping on the bricks or the cement.
That's risk-taking.
That's absolutely risk-taking. And he's getting pleasure out of this. Remember we talked about this in the animated series, that he's getting this high from being so close to injury and death. His own death.
And then even jokes, sometimes I just kill myself.
Yeah. So that humor about suicidality, that humor about his own death,
And he does that even in the Belfry when he's dancing with Vicky Vale. He points the pistol that he's been holding onto her. He points it at his own head and says,
he totally does.
And says,
You know, without you, I just wouldn't want to go on.
Pulls the trigger, and of course we get the flag, the POW, or the bang flag, that comes out. He is constantly joking about his own death.
Yeah. And that actually, that aspect of this character has been there since his origin. He has always had this this sense of humor that's just so dark that he's willing to go there. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you're right. This accident seems to have amplified and worsened all of these existing characteristics. And I don't know if when he fell in that vat, did he have any head trauma? Did he have some kind of head injury? Because as we've talked about before, any damage to his prefrontal cortex, which is that front part of that brain, could possibly lead to more antisocial behavior, because that part of the brain is responsible for judgment, impulse control, appropriate social behavior. So it's possible that he had brain damage that further complicated his psychopathology. So now we've got someone who probably had most features of antisocial personality disorder, but now after this accident has these additional characteristics, possibly delusions.
Yeah, he's described himself as an artist. He now wants to create a new aesthetic. He wants to now make the world as quote unquote beautiful as the Joker. And that's one of the reasons why he even tries to woo / recruit Vicky Vale, is that he sees that she is beautiful, but in the traditional sense. But at the same time, she is able to see the horror in things. Hence her photos in Time magazine of the Corto Maltese. She has struck his fancy in that regard, and he wants to take her on as a partner in deconstructing the beauty of the world and actually reconstructing a new version of beauty, which is everyone with these freakish smiles. And
yeah, I would say that's delusional. So what is a delusion? A delusion is a false belief based on incorrect inferences about external reality that is firmly sustained despite what almost everyone else believes and despite what constitutes incontrovertible and obvious proof or evidence to the contrary. That's the official definition of a delusion. So what does that mean in plain non-Vulcan English? It means somebody has a belief about their reality that isn't grounded in reality. It is an idea or a conviction that somebody really, truly believes in, despite any evidence that that is not reality. So we can see that he's got a delusion. And in fact, there's something called grandiose, magical delusions. And that's the idea or the belief that someone is important, omnipotent, that they have special powers, that they're sort of above everybody else. And certainly we see that that's how he sees himself, that he will actually violate other artists' work. And in fact, he seems to have this fixation on art because he wants to completely reinvent and redefine what people see as art. And we have this pretty dangerous formula or equation, because now we've got someone with the criminality and the deceitfulness and danger of antisocial personality disorder, along with this grandiosity, along with this delusion that he is above everybody else. And so now, I mean, that's again a formula for a dangerous person.
Mm-hmm. So how would you compare this to the Joker that we've grown to know and love and in BTAS.
I think they're actually very similar. We've got these, like almost a set of traits that are considered antisocial personality traits that you could say are true for both versions, right? This pathological, manipulative, conning type of persona, the glibness, that superficial charm, the clowny kind of character, that almost charismatic, interesting, intriguing person behind that Joker face, that grandiose sense of self-worth, lack of remorse, that callousness, that lack of empathy, the failure to accept his responsibility for his own actions. Certainly that what we talked about, like the high risk taking behavior, that kind of dancing with danger. The differences, though, are that this film version of the Joker, now we understand that he did have juvenile delinquency. He did possibly have conduct disorder or rule-breaking, law-breaking type of lifestyle. And we also see him pass as, well, for a short time, he's putting on makeup and he's passing as, I don't know, Jack Napier again, which is... We don't see that in the animated... We don't see the Joker in the animated series put on makeup and try to pass... I mean, we think he's wearing makeup. We don't really understand what's going on with his clown face. But he seems to always either have the clown face, or if he's dressed in a disguise, it's of another clown. So we have this kind of interesting complexity where the Joker puts on the Jack Napier... character and tries to pass as a regular citizen, but he does that in order to, as part of fulfilling his kind of deceitful, manipulative plans.
Gotcha.
Do you think of any differences?
I mean, I think one is just more serious about everything, but like one is just a constant joke, and one is far more serious in his intentions. And
when I said that in the animated series, he seems to just terrorize for the fun of it. Like he likes the thrill he likes that feeling of being on a roller coaster. And then you pointed out in the film, it's more than just that feeling. That he has this,
well, but you just pointed out that it's due to a delusion, which I wouldn't say the Joker has in BTAS. Like the Joker doesn't have delusions. He doesn't. And there isn't even really a grandiosity there so much as he just enjoys doing these things. Like he doesn't have the same ego. He doesn't have the same personality traits that lead to the motivations that he seems to have in the movie.
Yeah, in the animated series, you just get the sense that he's doing these awful things just to get a thrill out of it, which is certainly diagnostic and problematic. But
so it's two different people with the same diagnosis, but each one showing different signs or different ways of expressing.
Yes, you can have delusions within a personality disorder.
I am the world's first fully functioning homicidal artist.
Is he fully functioning?
I guess. I mean, he's fully functioning as a homicidal artist.
Right.
And it seems to be that human bodies are his canvas. It is frightening. I think knowing that the Joker in the animated series was, obviously created for younger viewers, you just can't have that kind of very menacing, someone who's that evil. You just can't have that on a TV show.
And of course, as any superhero film and even the TV series does, there's the fight at the end. But unlike the TV series, there is a finale to Batman and the Joker's relationship. They both acknowledge that each one created the other.
You made me, remember? You dropped me into that vat of chemicals. That wasn't easy to get over. And don't think that I didn't try. I know you did.
So they get their final showdown, and in the end, the Joker ends up dying. So I have a question for you, and that is, Batman just saw the death of the person that killed his parents. The book has been closed in some way. What does this do to Bruce going forward?
Nothing. I mean, well, I shouldn't say nothing. Yes, I feel like this is a huge chapter in his mission, that this is an accomplishment. I think he would feel this is not a failure. But he was Batman. He had created Batman and was acting as Batman before he knew that the Joker had killed his parents, or that Jack Napier had killed his parents. This wasn't about finding Jack Napier. Batman's pain does not come from the murder of his parents. Batman's pain comes from the years and years following that incident, where he's unable to overcome that feeling of loss. So there's a huge difference there. What he has to do next is accept the painful emotions that he's experienced. Sometimes accepting the painful emotions can reduce our suffering because we're no longer running away from them or pushing them away. So acceptance of those painful emotions actually reduces the pain. There's a very well-known expert in the field of psychology. Her name is Marsha Linehan, and she essentially pioneered this treatment called dialectical behavioral therapy. And one of the core features of this therapy is facing emotional pain and learning how to regulate your own emotions. But something that she says is very interesting between suffering and pain. She says, notice the difference between pain and suffering. Suffering is the pain plus frantic efforts to push the pain away, and feelings about the injustice of our suffering, and feelings about the injustice of our suffering and the pain of having our pain. Does that make sense?
Yes.
There's your authentic pain that you can accept and you can acknowledge and you can sort of have it as a part of you. You don't have to like it, but you can understand that's a part of you and you can move on. And then there's this suffering, which is hanging on to that pain.
Wow, so this was a lot of fun, actually. Stepping away, albeit briefly, from Batman the Animated Series, looking at Tim Burton's Batman for the 25th anniversary, but still able to bring it back to BTAS and actually compare the two, and we find out that they're really not as different as I initially would have thought.
Yeah, they're very similar. So now we're going to look at Bat Dance, the music video. No?
I'm gonna say it's all in his head. It's in Prince's head. That's what it is. Just like Sherwood.
That video is the most disturbing music video like I've ever seen.
It has the multiple personality disorder down to a T, I think. Prince unable to distinguish his Batman side from his Joker side, and they're at war with one another, and then he's yelling like, turn the music back up.
He wants to be put in that electric chair.
And then he
disturbing.
Shoots the shotgun at himself. Yeah, just everybody should check it out.
So maybe next time we'll be reviewing the Bat Dance music video.
That's right. So, next week actually we go back to Batman the Animated Series with an amazing episode called The Clock King.
Awesome.
So come back for that. Until then, if you want to reach us, you can email us at arkhamsessions@gmail.com, or you can find Drea at her website, underthemaskonline.com. And then there's also Twitter. We are at Arkham Sessions.
I am at Arkham Asylum Doc.
And I am at bward028. And you can also come find us on Facebook. We are there. Just find the Arkham Sessions and like us. And you can let us know what you think. So until next week.
I'm Dr. Andrea. Wait till they get a load of me, Letamendi.
And I'm Brian, all this in brains too, Ward. And we are
the Arkham Sessions.